The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
We're kicking off a new week. It's Monday, April 23rd, Tuesday, April 24th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair tonight, live from the Great White North in the Cariboo region on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia. We are live on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and we are live on the Fringe FM, so make sure you check out the basic programming at thefringe.fm. We are also live on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. Hi, Periscope. Hope you're having a wonderful day just like I am. And if you want to check out our archives, go to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. So you go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. They are right there. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on my latest blog on the Encounter Online, our news section. We also got great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. I am absolutely pumped up to be here tonight. It's been a crazy start to this week. It really has. And I got to tell you, I had one of those proud fatherly moments today. Picked up my son from preschool. He's just a 4-year-old. And we were hanging out, and he's like, Dad, could you come out and play outside with me? And I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So we got all his toys. We just cleaned out all the weeds from the garden, getting it all ready to do some planting this year. The little guy starts taking all his Tonka trucks through. And then all of a sudden, he has that child look of guilt on his face. So I look at him, I said, son, did you eat a worm? He goes, no. I said, were you eating dirt? And he sheepishly started nodding his head yes. And I went, yeah. That's my boy. That's my boy. Finally, we're getting dirty in the mud pits. It looks fantastic. I love it. One of those proud dad moments. Good to have you with us to kick off the week. I know we got some brand new listeners coming on in, taking us, listen to us for the first time. Thank you so much for trying us out. Hope we can do enough to earn your listening ears. Mike Ricksecker is a paranormal enthusiast and investigator who gave up an intense career as a computer analyst to tackle the mystery of the paranormal. His very first investigation was as a sophomore in high school, but he fast-forwarded 28 years, he's made a career of this. And after having witnessing plenty of unexplained activity, there are still those investigations that remind him to expect the unexpected. From haunted prisons to abandoned hospitals, Mike and his life partner Shauna tackle many of the most famous and infamous hauntings to help bring a scientific and unique approach to the paranormal investigation. It's about finding solutions to where there are none to be had. It's a difficult task, but the pair of super ghostly sleuths are ready for anything the paranormal could throw their way. Mike Ricksecker, my friend, it's been a long time, but we're glad to have you back. How you been doing, my friend?
I've been doing pretty well. Thank you for the fantastic introduction. I was just kicking back and enjoying listening to you speak. But yeah, it has been a while, and I appreciate coming back on.
So let's be honest with you, Mike. How old were you when you tried dirt for the first time?
I remember making mud pies in the backyard when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Yeah.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. It was a proud fatherly moment for me. It really was. My son covered head to toe in dirt. Showing him how to use the shovel in order to dig up worms. Like he's finally starting to investigate. And I think we all look for those little proud moments. And I was happy for him. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely. That is one of those thresholds of life that you have to cross, eating dirt. Absolutely.
So, Mike, for the people who don't know about you, you have a real interesting highlight to your entire life because you started off as a computer analyst. You've always kind of been into the paranormal. Why did you decide to make the paranormal a full-time career? Because not a lot of people have been able to do that.
Well, it mostly has to do with my writing. Writing is where I started way back when I was in second grade, and that's the career that I wanted, to become a full-time writer. Well, in this day and age, just writing, it doesn't cut it anymore. I mean, you have the top upper echelon, like your Stephen Kings and whatnot, that sure, they're going to make it. But I could have muddled around, remaining where I was in computers, and then, maybe doing a little bit on the side. But, I always had that passion for the paranormal, and it, honestly, a bit of it fell into my lap, although I had my first investigation when I was 15 years old, and I was always involved some way or fashion because of the fact that I had already started writing. And I had some paranormal short stories. My first couple of books were mystery novels. And it really, one of those lucky moments in life where I was approached to start writing some paranormal books. And so I took that and I really just ran with it, and to follow my dream. But along the way, some different things that I learned, as I was writing and I was putting out my work and doing speaking engagements and book signings and what have you, there were so many other people that came up to me and they were asking me, how do I get published? How do I write? How do I take these different steps that you have? And so I was, giving them advice, throwing them out to the wolves, and I started coming to this realization that instead of just, throwing them out there to the wind, hoping they follow my advice, that I could start helping them as well. And that's where Haunted Rogue Media was born, my publishing company. And so we specialize in, paranormal and psychic phenomenon books. That coupled with the paranormal investigations that we were doing, we started doing the YouTube channel years ago to complement the books and give a visual medium to tell the stories. And it's just really, one thing after another has built up into this great thing where Haunted Road Media is almost like an umbrella organization working on all these different projects in a lot of different mediums.
How fun has it been for you? I mean, the books, the ghost investigations, you met your wife currently through this. I mean, this has been a very fantastic career for you where a lot of people have struggled in making any sort of living, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a blast. Of going around traveling, investigating these different locations, writing about it all, doing the videography. It's an absolute blast, but, it's a lot of work. And I think where people get hung up is they want it to come easy. You see a lot of people start YouTube channels and, they want to get 1 million subscribers and, make millions of dollars within the first year. And that just doesn't happen. I mean, you have a few that get lucky and for whatever reason their channel takes off and they make all this money, or somebody gets lucky maybe and they have a super best-selling book. But for most people, you have to work hard for years to get there. My first book came out in 2004. It's 14 years later, so this didn't just happen overnight. So I think a good lesson for people who really want to do something like this as a career is you have to stick in it. You can't just try it for a year or two and then say, "Oh, I didn't make it to where I wanted to go, so I'm going to stop." You're going to have a lot of hard moments and a lot of tough choices to make, and you just have to keep persevering.
Mike, there is so much talk, and I would like to spend a couple of minutes with you on this because, whether it's people hosting podcasts or YouTube channels, or it seems like everybody is a writer and an author these days, and everybody's got the next paranormal television that's the next hot one coming up, and nobody's ever done it like we've done it before. You've heard it all. Mm-hmm. And, yet there is so many people willing to give everything away for free in this industry. What is your opinion of that? Because there are a lot of people putting in a lot of money, a lot of time for very little benefit at all. And yet the minute you try and say you're going to make a career out of the paranormal, people look at you funny and say, well, who are you ripping off to do this? Immediately everybody gets their back up. I'm sure you've heard all of the arguments.
Oh, of course. I mean, I understand where people are coming from where, to me, you have to separate it out, okay? A paranormal investigation of somebody's home, I don't really believe that you should charge for that. Now, if somebody wants to take those experiences and write a book and do videos and all that and try to make some money there, I think that's fine. But yeah, there are people that just want everything given away for free, and I don't believe in that because you've put so much time and effort and work into this that it becomes your job. If I was a parts company, right, and I was selling parts, you wouldn't have a problem with that. But why would you have a problem with me selling a book? My book is my part. My video is my part. I have these little squeezable, we call them ghosty. It's just a little stress reliever that glows in the dark. That's my
like
part
those.
that I sell. Yeah, they're very cool. So I don't understand why people take offense to that, but they do because they believe everything should just be free. And, while that's nice and idealistic, it's not practical for the real world.
So why is it so evil, if we could use that term very loosely, to make money in the paranormal field? I mean, there's a lot of people out there, Mike, that are absolutely steadfast against it. And I don't use the word steadfast very often on this show.
Yeah, there's a lot of harsh feelings from over the years because there have been many, many people who have abused the system, whether it's, a fake psychic that's charging hundreds of dollars to people going into somebody's home to do a paranormal investigation for hundreds of dollars. And, they make up a line of BS and, they go on their merry way with the money in their pocket and haven't truly helped the person at all. And there's too many of those cases that have happened over the years that have really jaded the paranormal community. And so, that's where people who are, true investigators who say, well, I'm not going to charge for a paranormal investigation. Because how do you quantify different things that you can't see? It's a little different than, a carpenter or a plumber comes in and you can actually, see physically the problem. You can sometimes with paranormal as well, of course. It's a little bit harder to quantify. So we've kind of come to this conclusion within the paranormal that, okay, we're not going to charge for investigations, but there are those people, of course, that say, well, anything that you charge for, whether it's books or what have you, no, we're going to be upset about that too, and I just think that's obtuse.
You know what? You are so right, Mike. It is the strangest thing to me because it's amazing to me that the word profit is so ugly in the paranormal field. Yet you go into any other business or any other company that you set up and, you're expected to make money. You're expected to take care of your employees. You're expected to make yourself a good, comfortable living. And yet there are very few in this field that are actually doing it. What, when you look at the entire field, are people missing out on to take it from that next step from hobby to business? I mean, I look at it from a radio perspective. It's very easy for me to break it down on a radio side because I have a radio background. But for you, when you look at the entire industry, there's so many people who are trying to get where you are and haven't been able to do it. Where are they going wrong, in your opinion?
Well, I mentioned one aspect earlier with perseverance. A lot of people will just fall by the wayside after a little while. Mindset as well, because of the fact that there are so many people that just consider it a hobby, and they can't quite get out of that hobby mindset where they're going to work on it a little bit here, a little bit there. We'll bring some things to a Paracon and set up a little table. You have to understand that if you truly want to make this a type of career, however you do it, and for me, it's not just one revenue stream. There's YouTube, there's books. We're doing podcasts. We're doing all these different things. So there's multiple revenue streams. So it's going to be more than one thing, and it's going to be a lot of work. So you have to get out of that hobby mindset and get into a business mindset. What I feed my mind with is I'm not just sitting here watching and listening to paranormal shows and paranormal videos on YouTube, although I do some of that, of course, but I'm also watching business-oriented videos and other creator videos on YouTube. So I'm listening to Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, Tim Schmoyer, Roberta Blake on the YouTube side. So I'm listening to a lot of different business-oriented type people to try to make this a real profitable business, even though people are going to say, well, paranormal business. Well, yeah, it's a publishing company. It's a video production company. It's not just paranormal.
And I think a lot of people mistake the fact that, it's easy to set up a YouTube channel. It's easy to get a bunch of cameras and play with filming, ghost adventures or anything like that. It's easy to, write a blog. Anybody can set up a website these days. No matter how smart or how simple you may be when it comes to computer technology, I personally would fall into the category of the simple kind on that part. But, the idea behind all of this is, I think, in my opinion, and I'm curious to get yours on this, do you believe that too many people still have stars in their eyes that this is the way they're going to make themselves famous comparatively to putting in the work that they feel or that they have to learn to be done about running a proper business? Because
I think a lot of people...
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people still just want to be on a television show. I think that they believe that if they become the next, Jason and Grant, or the next Zach, and they get their own television show, their next Tennessee Wraith Chasers, and they get their own television show, then they're going to become, big and famous, and they can quit their job and just be on TV. And it's worked out well for those few individuals. Of course, there have been shows that have come and gone too. But look at guys like Ghost Love. They had to go back to work. They had a big show. They were able to step away from their job for a while, but once their show was done, they went back to work. So it's not just simple like that. But I think that's the mindset of what people are trying to do. And it's unfortunate. I hear from a lot of people, and it's happened to me too, where they'll get a call from some producer for some show, and they want to film, and they want to do all these other things. They're going to bring them on TV, and they're going to interview them, they're going to investigate, maybe we're going to do a whole series, or maybe it's just an interview. And they get so far in the process, and then the production company says, "Oh, we're going to go a different direction." And that it's kind of a wake-up call, to those groups and those people and those teams when that happens. Like I said, it's happened to me as well.
My friend, I'm not going to cut you off there, but that literally just that just happened to me. That just happened to me. I was supposed to be going to New York this coming weekend to take what they call a chemistry test for a television show on UFOs. And literally the day after they were booking my flight, I literally got a phone call saying the head executive from the entire company just came down and axed the entire program. It's like, so I'm not going. It's like I'm not going to New York. Yep. No, unfortunately. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about in that, and how quickly minds can change.
Oh, absolutely. So don't bank on getting a television show. And if you get that call, it's not suddenly happening until you see your face on TV. It's not happening. I believe you've heard the story. I filmed for Ghost Adventures a year and a half ago, and my part of that got completely cut out. So, that that happens where you go and film and you end up not being there. So, do not bank on the shows. They're few and far between, and they're short-lived these days. So you have to come up with other means, other ways. And sure, do your videos. Try to find. I think the thing is that a lot of the videos, and I'm still working on it myself. I have almost 500 videos out there right now, but I'm still crafting how these are put together. And it's a matter of finding your voice. And I give kudos to anybody who tries to do something. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself in front of a camera, or you're putting yourself in front of a microphone, and you are allowing the world to judge you, which takes a bit of a set of cojones to do that. So I applaud that. And where a lot of people start is in mimicking what they've seen, and that's fine. You have to start somewhere. I think the people that progress and start to make it on their own are those that are able to find their own voice and are able to do something a little bit different than what everybody else is. It makes them a little bit unique. And so keep trying, keep persevering, like I said, but try to find your own voice too. Don't just be cookie cutter of what everybody else is doing.
Do you find, though, that maybe the heyday of paranormal television is starting to wrap up? Over the last couple of years, Mike, we have seen some big-name television shows go by the wayside, either long-term or short-term. They've just disappeared.
Yeah, it's becoming tougher because we've done it all, right? Now the networks want everything to be a demon, and where do you go after that? Demon is kind of the the top tier of of scaring everybody. Which those are few and far between, but the television shows make it out like they're all over the place. So where do you go from there? And how many different times can you watch a television show that's doing the same thing every episode, where you walk into a house, you get 5 minutes of backstory, and then we're walking around in the dark for the next 45 minutes. That kind of wears on the audience after a little bit, which is why the networks kept trying to amp it up. They would encourage different shows to fake some things, or like I said, everything has to be a demon now. So, the public has seen these things for the last 15, 20 years. So, yeah, there's going to be a point in time where it falls by the wayside. There'll be a gap of time where there really aren't that many shows around at all anymore. And then as a new generation comes along, there'll be the next wave of shows. And that'll be somewhere down the road.
Well, let me ask you this, Ed. When it comes to paranormal television or radio, what is next? What is the big step that everybody has to take in order to recreate that magic that Ghost Adventures has, or, Ghost Hunters International, or any of those shows? What is that magic?
That is an excellent question. And I don't necessarily know if I have the answer, but I think what some of the different shows had for a while was we were seeing different locations. Well, not the same locations have been done over and over. So I think some of them will be, location-based, where, okay, this is a little bit different. We haven't seen these particular locations before. I think as technology evolves, we may see some other evolution there where, we've reintroduced virtual reality and 360 videos, which we've had before. We had that stuff 20 years ago, and it fell by the wayside for a while. They're trying to reinvigorate it now, which it's doing okay. So it may be something along the lines of there. I mean, I've played around with that type of technology to set up a paranormal investigation with 360. Because a lot of times with the shows, it's like, oh, we heard something over here, and the camera, pans around real quick, but whatever happened is already gone. We've had it with one of our 360 videos where, you hear the sound, but because you have full range of view, you saw exactly what happened. So that technology, I think, as it evolves and becomes better, because right now it's still, I don't want to say in its infancy, it was in infancy 20 years ago, but it's in, maybe teenage state. But as that evolves, I think we'll be able to get some more interesting footage that way. So it might be something with technology that's the next level.
Could the mainstream public who is watching these programs finally be fed up that we're never solving anything, especially in the Bigfoot and UFO categories?
Well, yeah, you can only sit through so many videos where shows in which you got guys walking through the woods and you never actually find anything. So it makes it tough for the viewer after a while. You need some sort of reward there. And, if you never, cash in, especially when it comes to alien or Bigfoot, it makes it very difficult for the viewer. So again, that's one of those where those shows will probably go by the wayside for a while, and then when the next generation comes along, we'll try it again.
What about radio? Has internet radio gone as far as it needs to go? Because one of the things I see is we still have the Grand Poobah, the monopoly winner of it all, Coast to Coast AM, which is on right now. So thank you for listening into us rather than the big guys. But on the flip side, there are so many others who have tried, and I don't want to say failed, but maybe never lived up to that type of hype or expectation.
Well, it's very competitive out there. And one thing that technology has done, yes, you have the Grand, Poobah of Coast to Coast. However, because it's not the 1980s anymore when Coast to Coast originated, and anybody can start an internet radio station, you have so many more options these days. Now, of course, there's going to be a big discrepancy between those who are listening coast to coast and, somebody that's got a blog talk radio station. But, it's a place to start and kind of, earn your chops. I started a few years ago with my co-host Vanessa Hogo on Blog Talk Radio. We've since brought it to a YouTube live stream show, and it's progressed much better. So I definitely think radio has its place because people are always going to listen to audio. They want to be able to multitask, or maybe you're driving and you want to be able to listen to something, or you're jogging and you want to listen to something. You can, pop on the internet radio in the shower these days. So it's always going to have its place. And I think the fact that technology has allowed so many people now to try their hand at it is a great thing. And I think there'll be, some that do rise to the top and will kind of, chip away at coast to coast. And you never know, maybe some years down the road, we'll have some other big internet-based stations dealing with the paranormal.
You know what I do find funny is there are a couple of outlets that I just do not understand. Number one, there are major networks out there, because Coast to Coast is owned by Premier Radio Networks, but you have Westwood One and Cumulus and a number of other companies out there who literally have seen the profitability of Coast to Coast, yet they have done nothing to try and get their own. And you could say the exact same thing about Sirius XM, where literally there is not a single channel on the paranormal, yet they also know the numbers that paranormal radio draws as well. It almost seems when on a terrestrial side of radio that you have all these program directors who see the numbers right in front of them, yet are refusing to even open up that market because they really don't want to be the guy who brings it in. They would love it if they inherited it, Mike, but to bring it in, it's tough to make that decision because you don't want to be seen by, so many people.
Yeah, there may be a certain connotation associated with that. And, you're going to go down that route. Okay. But why not be the oddball? I don't know. I guess I don't want the stigma. I don't know.
Very tough. And maybe that's it. Because there is a stigma. I mean, let's face it, in this field, we have some very impressive workers like yourself. John Tenney being another one, Greg and Dana Newkirk, other people such as that, even people who may not have the notoriety or the name factor that goes along with the television shows. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good work, and unfortunately, I guess it all comes down to is you get picked on by the very few who screw someone over, which ruins an entire field, doesn't it?
Well, it does, because with something like this, there is an extreme trust factor in place. And if I'll use an example of a real case, infield poltergeist case. The girls in that case claim that, because they got caught faking a couple of things, and so they claim, well, we faked maybe about 2% of it. Well, if you did 2%, that throws everything else in the question. So you have people in this field that have faked evidence, that have screwed people over, and so that causes the entire field to be questioned because of those few people. That's unfortunate.
Do you see a day where this field finally cleans itself up?
Well, I mean, that's difficult for any industry, there's...
Yeah, but Mike, let me clarify that for a little bit. There is no rule books here. Everybody is investigating on their own. Like, I would absolutely love it if we got, say, yourself, like some of the bigger names out there, and I think it has to be the bigger names, Mike, that are out there doing this and making a living off of this, because for some reason the bigger names, even though everybody loves to slag them online, everybody listens and knows exactly what they're doing. But I think if you threw John Tenney and yourself and a number of these other people in a room and said, okay, we're going to come together with a paranormal handbook or a guide, the do's and don'ts of the paranormal, make some sort of Bible for this, would that make a difference, or is it too late?
You could try. The problem is to me, well, even like with the Bible, it's very, even to this day, very disputed, because there are books that were left out of the Bible. So you're always going to have people that are going to, argue, what should be in there, what should not be in there. If you're going to put together a set of standards, what is the governing body over those standards? What type of, is there a certification process for that? So it's, that would have to be a very, very, it's almost like, when the internet standards came into being, you had to, get together a whole board and an organization, and all these different things had to come into place. So to do that with the paranormal, it could happen. I think it would be difficult, especially when you have so many of these things that you can't necessarily quantify physically, and a lot of it is theory. It makes it difficult to be able to do that. Could it possibly happen down the road? Sure, I think anything's possible.
What would you like to see happen then?
Well, if we could come to some sort of resolution with that, it would be fantastic. Like I said, I think it's going to take a lot more. It's going to take a lot more research and figuring out what specifically a lot of this phenomena is. Because there's so much of it that's highly debatable. And I think that's the issue, where you have people on opposite ends of the spectrum that, will argue till they're blue in the face over what, a specific type of entity is and what quantifies that specific entity, or if that specific entity even exists. It makes it extremely difficult. It's a little bit different than, other industries where things are, so very physical. Within the paranormal itself, you have your own science versus religion within that organization, where it's a little bit different than where those were very, very separate entities on their own. Within the paranormal, they're together and they fight all the time. So, you have, groups that are very, what they call scientific based, and then you have a group of mediums that go out and investigate, and then you have some groups that use both. So, and they're always conflicting. So it makes it a little difficult. Yes, I'd love to see it come together. And I just think it's going to take time in discovering more and finally discovering some real truths about all that we're dealing with. Because, like I said, a lot of it's still based on theories.
How do we start gaining that truth as we start to turn this conversation more into a paranormal conversation rather than the media side of everything? But it just seems like no matter what we do, how much technology we try, the advancements are being made, and kudos to everybody who is inventing these monitors and these gadgets that are trying to detect the spirits. But are we ever any closer to solving the mystery? And does the paranormal field, in your opinion, even care about solving that mystery, Mike?
Oh, I think they care. I do think they care. I think a lot of the new technology that's been coming out, some of it's been fantastic, or how to use technology that's come out for other uses and being able to use that for the paranormal, like the SLS camera. I mean, it comes out for the Xbox Kinect, and it's a game system, and we figured out how to use that to try to detect paranormal anomalies. That's fantastic to be able to figure that out. I think some gadgets that are out there are, probably people overthinking it, but I applaud people for trying. I mean, it's better to try it than to not. So I don't know if we're gonna specifically come up with that one device that is like surefire going to prove once and for all, okay, this is for sure a spirit. I think somebody will still debate it, because we've seen it, even if it's photographs or videos, or we're seeing these surefire anomalies detected, or absolute surefire responses to questions that you're asking that are making a device react. People will still left and right debate it. So it'll be interesting because technology is developing so fast and going so many places that maybe there will be something. And maybe it's not quite in our imagination yet as to exactly what that will be, but I would never have thought that, like I said, the SLS camera, that using a game system that came out a few years ago could be used for detecting paranormal anomalies. You don't know what the next wave of technology will bring, and maybe it's there.
I understand that, and I can agree with that, but I mean, with so many different ways people are investigating the paranormal, and there is absolutely very little to no continuity regarding what we are doing or what we are trying to find, because everybody's idea is different. How can we get on the same page to try and figure out and work as a team rather than individuals? Because so many individuals out there are either so bitter or so involved with their own good and their own investigation that there's no information sharing, there's no nothing. Then we have the debate, what is science, what is not, are mediums allowed, should they not be allowed to dabble in investigation? Like, it is all over the place. It is like, going into a paint store and letting a bull run through there and pop all the cans open at the same time.
Yeah, it's difficult because I believe that the best tool that you have is your body, but how do you quantify a sensation that you're feeling into, something, scientific that can be recorded? It makes it difficult. And you're right, there's a big problem with information sharing. And this is actually an area where I think the media and the current culture with the television shows has really hurt, because people will hold on to evidence and things that they've caught because they don't want somebody else stealing it to claim as their own and try to get on some sort of television show with it. And that's a real shame, and things like that have happened. So people don't share. And, I've seen some fantastic evidence that people have shown me, but they're not sharing it with anybody else. Or, I'm sitting there watching somebody's live paranormal investigation and something amazing happens, and they end up taking the video down afterward because they don't want somebody else grabbing that footage and repurposing it as their own. So it's a real shame when that happens, but it's the real truth. And like I said, I think that's where the popular culture is really hurt in that regard. So, is it one of those things where maybe finally when the shows subside and die down and there's no network looking for paranormal shows, that we're finally able to take a breath and say, okay, that was an interesting ride. Now let's finally come together and figure this out. Now that none of us are getting on TV, now let's sit down and figure it out. Maybe that's what it'll take.
Well, it would be nice to see some continuity. It really would. And, I'm not saying this to make this one giant bitch fest or anything like that, Mike, because that's not really what it's about. But, I mean, there is a healthy portion of the paranormal population that would love to be able to work together, but it is always something along the lines of that one or two people that continue to bring everything down for everybody or ruin it for everybody. And getting those positive people together. I guess it's like politicians. We all vote one politician, and then we all complain when that politician doesn't do what we want, yet it's our fault we voted them in, and then we start acting like sheep around it. You know what I'm saying, Mike?
Yeah, well, you're placing your trust someplace, and then that particular person or body or whatever it is, breaks your trust, and that has happened, multiple times within the paranormal field. So it makes it difficult, but that is a part of life in many fields, not just the paranormal. So you've had banks break your trust, or like you said, politicians. So it's within any field.
When it comes to the paranormal, what are something, like if you have somebody brand new walk up to you, Mike, and you say, Mike, I want to do this. This is something that I want to get in. I've seen the TV shows. I've had my own personal experiences. What can I do to get into this? How do I do it? Take me through the steps of what you're telling somebody who is absolutely green to this.
Well, if they've had a couple experiences, they're not completely green, but if they're really interested in investigating the paranormal, I would suggest to them that they find a reputable team, and maybe I help them find a reputable team to get with, somebody that's fairly trustworthy within the paranormal community, so that they need to be mentored. There's too many teams out there that are comprised of a couple people who saw the television shows and they're like, oh, we could do that. You just run around with a couple of cameras and some gadgets, and there you go. I would suggest to somebody that they be mentored for quite a while, by people that have been in the field for many, many years.
What about if they say, look, I don't believe in that psychic crap, or I don't believe in mediumship. I don't want to be around anything like that. I think that can taint an investigation. What's your opinion of that?
Well, for one, instantly I believe they're wrong, because I do believe it has its place. I would suggest to them that they keep an open mind, because the things that they see in this field, as they continue to do it more and more, will certainly amaze them. And they may even discover along the way that they have some of those abilities themselves. I do believe that as you continue to put yourself out there and open yourself up to the paranormal, that you become more sensitive to it, and you start to pick up on some of these things yourself. That said, if they're looking to start investigating and what have you, I might try to steer them toward a team that is a bit more scientific based, as opposed to the psychic side of it, just because of their beliefs. But I would still let them know that they should keep themselves open to it.
What about the way they gather information and gather evidence? What is your strength or your talk with these people who gather evidence and don't know what to do with it? They just, once they look it over, they're done with it. It just sits there.
Yeah, I would suggest, again, I would guess to share it, to not just let it sit there. And that's really a tough one, because people, they go out there and they go looking for evidence. They might throw it up there on YouTube or something real quick and say, oh, look what I found. They might pull it down or what have you. It's not, so much of this is just not about the evidence collection part of it. To me, it's about the people involved. And I think that's something within the conversation that we haven't really had yet, is that these historic locations, or maybe it's somebody's house or what have you, these entities that we are going there and investigating, they were people. They had lives. And a big part of what we're doing, or what we should be doing, is being a voice for those people now. They still have something to say, or they're looking for some help, or they have a message, or whatever it is that has kept them around right now. And maybe it's through your device that you're able to get that message from them. The gadgets, the devices, the cameras, even the mediums and their abilities, those are all tools to interface with these people. We can't see them. Sometimes we can, but for the most part we can't. And for the most part we can't hear them, although occasionally we may be able to. And these devices are supposed to help us interface with that. So it's almost like, they're almost like translators, and we're trying to figure out what the best translation device is. So we've come up with all these different devices, and so I think that kind of gets lost, that these are real people that we're dealing with here. So don't forget that.
So in your opinion then, as we look at the flip side of this, what is the biggest mistakes that some rookies make getting into this field then? What's the no-nos?
Talking to the red light. Seriously. You'll see people holding an audio recorder and trying to tell the spirit they're talking to the red light. And of course, it might be a spirit from, the late 1700s or something. They have no idea what in the world you're talking about. They don't even know what the device is that's in your hand. I think, the big rookie mistakes are not understanding context. Some of these devices that you're coming in with, you have to almost over-explain what it is that you're doing and what this device is. Because some of the stuff, especially if you're dealing with older spirits, like I say, 1700s, they're going to look at what you're doing and this contraption that's in your hand. If you're not explaining what in the world it is, they're going to see it as something magical or maybe even witchcraft, right? And, of course, witchcraft is evil. They're not going to want to have anything to do with you. So keep in mind the history and the context of where you are and what you're trying to explain. Now, if it's somebody that's been passed away in the 80s or something like that, maybe in the 90s, whatever, they're going to understand what it is that you have. So you can say, okay, I have a recording device in my hand, and but somebody from 100, 150, 200 years ago, they're not going to understand that. So I think that's probably one of the biggest rookie mistakes right there. It's just not understanding the context of the situation that you're in.
What do you think of somebody like Steve Huff? Right after somebody famous dies, most recently, Art Bell, and going all public with his investigation and basically going live with it. What's your opinion?
Well, if any of your listeners watched my Edge of the Rabbit Hole episode that we did last week on Art Bell, our tribute episode to him, we did address Steve Huff. And so they know exactly what I said to Steve Huff, and I can't say it on your station. I think it's totally classless. He upset me years ago with the Robin Williams thing, and I know he's done it for many, many other celebs. I do not think that Art Bell's first order of business after passing away is to show up in Steve Huff's dining room and talk to him. Not happening. Sorry. So I think it's just I think it's just a play on YouTube to get more views.
So what about the voice that came on there that kind of sounds like Art? A lot of people believe it was.
There's a lot of ways to manipulate those things, the audio of those things. And it's an issue I have with a lot of the computer apps that are out there right now. Coming from a computer and a technology background, and I spent years as a developer, and I spent many years in a lot of different areas, but as a developer as well, I have a degree in simulation programming. So I understand how somebody could very easily manipulate those devices and make it come out the right way. I remember sitting there one time in an investigation. I was helping out with a public investigation, and there was a kid there. He basically had his face in his laptop the entire time, and he has his app up, and he's talking into it, and it's coming up with all kinds of, sounds and voices and what have you. And there was one time where the computer shot back at him his own voice in the words that he just said. And I'm sitting there like, oh, so that's how that one does it. And basically what I believe was happening with that particular app, and I don't know what that app was, I never asked them, but I believe what that particular one was doing was, as he spoke into it, it captured his voice through the microphone, regurgitated it within the program, and shot it back out at him as a response. Very easy to do with some basic programming. So I have a problem with the apps. I definitely have a problem with Steve Hoff, but any of those voices could be easily manipulated through computer programming.
My friend, we're going to continue. I want to ask you a couple more questions about Steve Huff after the break here, Mike, but we got to step out for a quick second. Mike Ricksecker is our guest tonight. He is the owner of Haunted Road Media. That's hauntedroadmedia.com. You can also check out his personal website, MikeRicksecker.com. Check out any of his books as well. Mike is one, in my opinion, of the best talents the paranormal has to offer right now. So if you want to check out his information, you got the websites. I highly suggest you do. We'll be back with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. A couple of shout-outs before we get going. Uncle Bob, the voice behind Spaced Out Radio, who introduces me, he's having a pretty tough time tonight. Uncle Bob, we are thinking of you. We love you. Thanks for being in the chat room. Your beard is fantastic. Keep your chin up, buddy, because we are all in Spaced Out Radio land absolutely cheering you on, my friend. Just keep it up. Keep up the good spirits. You're doing absolutely great. Uncle Bob, for those of you who don't know, he is in hospital, and he's going through a pretty tough time right now. So if you could send him some thoughts, prayers, and some lovely, lovely healing, that would be absolutely fantastic. We also want to give our thoughts and prayers out to everybody in Toronto tonight and the province of Ontario and Canada. If you hadn't heard the news today, 9 people lost their lives by some reckless, I'm going to call him a terrorist. I don't care about the nationality. You're a terrorist when you do something like this. Ran through a bunch of people on Yonge Street in Toronto, killing 9 people today. And we want to send our thoughts and prayers out to everybody in Ontario. I got a lot of friends out back east. We got a lot of listeners out there as well. Hopefully you are all right, and thoughts and prayers with everybody out in Toronto. Tomorrow night on the program, Bill Hauser is going to join us. Get your pens and papers ready, because we're going to do a live Ghost Box session starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, with Bill Hauser at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and you can catch us live every Monday through Sunday on the Fringe FM. Yes, go to thefringe.fm for great paranormal programming. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club: dichlorophentyl trichlorothane. Dichlorophentyl trichlorothane? Is that it? Dichlorophentyl trichlorothane. I think that's it. Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can watch us live on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. You can also, do me a favor, check out and subscribe to our archives on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio. We would greatly appreciate it. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read The Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight, from Haunted Road Media, one of my favorite paranormal investigators in the world, Mike Ricksecker, is with us. MikeRicksecker.com. You can go to Amazon, pick up any of his books. This man is a talent, tells it like it is, the way it should be in the paranormal field. Mike, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Right before the break, we were talking about Steve Huff. And Steve is a very, very controversial individual in this field, especially with his Ghost Box sessions, who believes that you must contact a spirit as close to the time of death as possible in order to try and get the best and first connection with them on the other side. Do you buy that theory?
I've contacted spirits from all generations, all years. It hasn't mattered if they just passed away or they were, if they passed away 200 years ago. So I don't necessarily buy that. I mean, I don't know Steve personally. I've never met him. I mean, if that's a theory that he's come up with, if he has some sort of data that shows that, again, him contacting celebrities just after they've passed away, I don't buy into that. Give me some people, some regular Joes, that have passed away. Let's get into that rather than always being a celebrity.
Do you think it's a matter of him just doing it for popularity, or do you think he actually cares about the paranormal field?
Again, I don't know him personally to necessarily make that assertion, but from the looks of it, to me, it's a popularity thing.
Are you offended, though?
If you're going after celebs all the time, just after they've passed away, that's what it seems like to me. Because anybody knows that if you put out a video just after something like that has happened, it's going to generate traffic. Yes, I am offended by him doing something like that. I made statements like that when we had our Art Bell tribute, and yeah, sure, we did an Art Bell video just after Art passed away. But to me, there's a bit of a difference between celebrating somebody's life and trying to exploit their name to get views onto your video.
And you see, that's the exact situation. And like we said last week when we talked about it on this show with Steve, if you feel that 24 to 48 hours is the best time to communicate, great, go ahead and do it. But nobody says you have to release the video at that time. Wait 10 days, 12 days, 14 days. Wait a week. it's not going to matter. Wait a week to see what your results are. To say, look, we're going to give the family time to heal. We're going to give the listeners time to heal in the case of Art. We're going to let everybody take the time to have their moment of grief and their moment to try and get over this, because it is a tough loss on a lot of people. I just see it as somebody trying to patronize the entire field and industry to take advantage of people's emotions. And I don't think he looks at something, whether it's good press or bad press. To him, press is press, and he's willing to do whatever it takes in order to get it out there for himself.
Yeah, to me, it's hard to believe that there's a conscience there. Yeah, and I made similar statements to that, Dave, where I thought it was very offensive to the family. Let the family have some time to heal, and it's going to take them a long time, but give them some space. Don't be just jumping right on there about, here's messages from Art. And if Art's going to try to talk to anybody after he first passed away, it's going to be his family, not Steve Huff. Come on now. But by putting out a video immediately after that happens, because people are going to be talking about it. I mean, I saw YouTube light up with all kinds of, Art Bell tributes, which was fantastic. Well, and then of course there's Steve's video, and he's going to show up as a suggested video off of all of those, and people are going to click on it because, here's Steve saying that he's got messages from Art. And even if they believe it's true or not, that bit of curiosity of, what's Steve doing now? They're going to click into it. So, yeah, it's a tactic to get more views.
But that's what the mainstream sees. They don't see the work that you're doing, or John Tenney, or Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, or many of our listeners who are ghost hunters who are doing it right. They don't see that. They see the Steve Huffs because that is sexy. That is, their opportunity to laugh or roll their eyes or call the paranormal classless. You know what I'm saying? And every time, people like you get beat up by that.
Yeah, it's just like any other type of shock video, and that's just his form of it. Let's put out a video of, the recently deceased person talking, whether it's offensive or not, it's going to be a shock video to do that. And so that's, we have that in a lot of different areas of our culture right now. Let's put out some sort of shock video because people are going to watch it. They're going to jump on it. So this is his way of doing that.
Are you surprised, though, that his way has not led to a bunch of different copycats?
In a way, yeah, because you would think that there'd be more people jumping on. There are people that try to put together similar devices and similar apps, and people out there that sell those sorts of things. But as far as the videos, I don't know, maybe most other people have realized how tactless it is to do that.
So how do you change it? How do you go about changing that type of, I don't want to call it entertainment, but investigation, where when you're out talking to people, do you go out and mention to them, look, this isn't what you want to do. Don't be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I usually try to take things more from a positive point of view rather than a negative. So I usually don't ever talk about Steve Huff. It came up when everything happened with Art because of that particular video. So that got mentioned. Usually, when I'm talking to people about the paranormal and methodology for investigating, I'm talking about the way that I believe is the proper way to do it, rather than don'ts. I usually talk in do's rather than don'ts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to move on and get your opinion of what Art Bell meant to this industry. I mean, it was about 10 days ago that Art passed away. We still don't know why, and I'm sure the family will be keeping that a secret for a long time. But he left such a hole inside the entire community of the paranormal. What did Art mean to you?
Well, he's one of those guys that he opened a lot of doors. Prior to Art, there wasn't a late night presence out there to talk about these things, and he allowed people to get on there and talk about anything. And I remember watching a interview with him with Larry King, where he was saying that nighttime people are different, and that's something that he really loved. And just to listen to their stories and their experiences, whether he believed them or not, he gave them an opportunity to speak. And it opened a lot of doors for us during that time. It came on in the 80s. It was really one of the, forefathers of this field. You talk about Harry Price, you talk about Hans Holzer, you could throw the Warrens in there in the 70s. Art Bell was the 80s when he had that voice, and he had a fantastic voice. He had that voice for radio and was able to reach a lot of people and allow people to open up and start discussing these things. And because for a long, long time it was taboo. He had a couple people that were sort of accepted, but for most people, especially way back in the day, if you were talking about seeing things or hearing things or what have you, you're tossed in the loony bin. Well, Art allowed people to be able to talk about these different things really without any prejudice, which was fantastic. And for the radio, it's almost like a blueprint of us to work off of now. He's the forerunner for all this that we've been doing for, we have internet radio now, and Dave, you have your station, he's one of those guys that really set the precedent for us and showed us, how to do it. And without him, I think maybe we're still flailing in the wind on this thing. And I really do hope that a lot of the younger generation, because Art had kind of been out of the game there for a couple of years before he passed away. So I really do hope that some of the younger generation will go back and listen to some of his broadcasts. You can find them all over the place. Just look them up and just listen to how he let people share their experiences. I can't say enough about him.
Do you have a favorite Art Bell story, the one that kind of sticks with you, maybe from the days when you were a kid listening in at night, when you should have been sleeping, getting ready for school or college the next day?
Well, and that's probably it right there. It's like, all those, because I, wasn't very good sleeping late at night anyway. I was always a night owl. And so, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where either I was writing or doing something like listening to him. And so, it's just one of those fond memories, really. Cherished childhood experiences of, kind of being sneaky and listening to the radio late at night. And so I don't really have, one specific story or interview that he gave or whatever. I don't really have that, but just the whole idea of it is what I have.
It really was perfect radio. In my opinion,
yeah.
It was perfect radio. When Art was talking about the weird, scary, creepy stuff with that voice of his, that's what made the night. The topic really didn't matter.
Right. Exactly.
Let's get into some hauntings here, my friend. You recently have been doing a tour of abandoned and overrun hospitals, if we can call them, shut down hospitals, institutions. How did you get started on that?
Yeah. Excuse me. I was taking a sip of my coffee, went down the wrong pipe.
I hate when that happens. Hate it.
Yeah. You had to wet the whistle, and it just didn't go in the right place. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. I'm always trying to get into a lot of different locations, see what's going on, learn the history, and just discover new things. One of the phrases that we have, it's a hashtag that we have, Explore With Us. because that's what we're doing. We consider ourselves explorers in the paranormal realm. A lot of these places are abandoned, and we're exploring and discovering the history of what's happened and what happened to the people at these different locations. So someplace like a hospital, and we just had the event up here, Tri-C put on the event here at St. Joseph's Hospital in Lorraine, Ohio. Places like that have so much energy within them. There's so much tragedy, but there's, good stories as well. People's lives began at these locations. I posted some of these videos of these different hospitals, and it's interesting. You get the feedback of people say, "Yeah, I was born there." Some people I was talking to over this past weekend were telling me stories about when they worked there, and so it's an epicenter for so many people's lives. Beginnings and ends. And, those who, work there for so many years, doctors and nurses and what have you. And, almost everybody at some point in time ends up at that hospital for something, So it's something within the community that touches so many lives, and that energy within it is palpable. And, like this one up here, St. Joe's, depending on where you are at within that hospital, you're feeling, many different types of energies. So, it's really, it's almost like a gold mine for the paranormal investigator. And these locations are huge, they're massive. It takes a long time to investigate. You're not going to go through this place in one night and be able to come away with all the, secrets of the place. So it's some place that you're going to continually go back to, and you start to learn some of the stories. You start to talk to some of the people that used to work there, and you're learning about things that went on there. I was talking to this one lady. She was saying, there's this one place down in the ER, this one little hallway that you did not want to go down there alone. So you hear stories about that, or you hear stories about some, horrific accident that happened, or, there's just so many different, stories that touch so many people's lives. So it's just an amazing place to go visit. And then, when it's abandoned, like so many of these are now, it's, that's just going to add to the entire ambiance of the whole thing.
Well, the hospital, or any hospital really, has that uncanny ability to be so positive in one end or one ward and so negative in another ward. I mean, I remember the night my son was born, just hours before that, my daughter's great-grandmother, or pardon me, great-aunt or great-great-aunt on her mom's side was dying on the other end of the hospital while we were in labor with our son. It was the exact strange thing, because my daughter, she was running to one end of the hospital, to be with her dying aunt, and then she would run back after an hour to be with us as her stepmom and me were, waiting for our son to be born. And then she would go back, and then finally the news came that Aunt Daisy had passed away. And in the meantime, a few hours later, she comes back to this end, and her little brother is born. It's very strange with a hospital and how that works. And that has to just send the energy just shaking in all directions.
Yeah, you talk about mixed emotions. That's unreal right there. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And in some place here that is, now abandoned and nobody's working there anymore, those types of emotions have embedded themselves within the facility. So yeah, you go to the labor and delivery section, and you're getting more of the maternity ward, and you're getting more of those upbeat feelings. While you go to the ER, the psych ward, or what have you, and it's a lot, the ICU, and it's a lot heavier.
Have you ever talked to any doctors or nurses openly about their own experiences?
Well, yeah, one of the people here that shared their experiences, well, it was a nurse about that, about that creepy little hallway. But there's some others where they're talking about a nurse who had actually died in a car accident locally, not at the hospital or anything like that. Didn't die at the hospital, but after having died in this car accident, apparently came back to the hospital, and they would see her on occasion, walking the halls or standing there at the nurse's station. We believe we may have caught her in one of our videos. Really hard to tell. It's just, we're standing in a hallway. We're getting a walkthrough from Greg from Tri-C, and from down that hallway, you see something peek around the corner, and apparently that's the hallway in the nurse's station where she was seen a lot by her coworkers after she had passed away. So, yeah, it's really interesting, some of the stories you hear from these people.
Eric Markham, a resident scientist, he actually just posted in the chat room, because he works in a hospital. He says even the newer hospitals that he works at are even haunted. I mean, a lot of spirits you would have to think, because their bodies are being worked on, that maybe they just don't know that they've crossed over, or that their body has died off and their soul has left.
Well, yeah, and that is, one particular belief that, there are times when people pass away and they just don't realize that they have. Maybe what happened to them was maybe so instantaneous or, traumatic or what have you, that they just have no idea that they passed away and they're stuck there. So, yeah, that's, a very common belief within this field.
Eric also says that with the security cameras, they aren't allowed to keep that type of footage. It gets erased very quick. Have you noticed that with hospitals that you have worked with?
Well, the hospitals that I've been working with they're abandoned. So this video footage is, long since gone. So I haven't really had that type of opportunity from, like a working hospital for video footage for paranormal investigations. So I can't really speak to that.
Well, let's move on to the hospitals that you are working on here. Why did you choose hospitals as a topic to start investigating in the first place?
Well, it's one of those, like I said, one of those interesting locations with so many different types of phenomena going on inside, so many different types of energies. We investigate a lot of different locations. Hospitals are one that there's so many. To me, a lot of this is. Remember, I was a mystery writer. I grew up writing little mysteries. My first couple of books were mystery novels, and so to me, a lot of this are different mysteries. And hospitals have many mysteries. So you have so many different wings, so many different wards. A lot of these hospitals, were around for 100 years. So you have different eras as well. Or just completely different settings, like investigating the old Army field medical complex at Fort Chaffee, completely different setting. You're talking a military hospital that had actually like its own little prison in there. It's almost its own little facility. It was a medical complex, but it was almost like its own entity to itself, because it had there's a little bowling alley in there, there's a little theater in there, and all of these different things. And it had these expansive, long hallways. So it was just really unique in the way the whole thing was designed and put together. And so it was really like you're walking through this maze. You're coming across all these different wards from like the 50s. So it's just a really, really interesting experience. And, you get all these different types of energies and entities, and you're learning a lot and discovering so much. And look, I said earlier in the show, you become a voice for these different spirits and these different entities. If it is somebody that didn't realize that they passed away, maybe you can do something to help them, or maybe there was, even if they still don't realize that they passed away, maybe there's some message that they wanted to, pass along, or at least, you can do something to make sure that they're remembered in some fashion. So, to me, it's just a gold mine for exploring the paranormal.
When you are investigating a hospital, what type of spirit seems to come around the most? Is it the one that maybe died in the hospital, or one that maybe came back because they loved working there, or the hospital is just a big part of their everyday life?
It's really a mixture. It really is. 'Cause you get both of those. And I think it's more of the ones that don't realize that they've passed away, as far as the patient side. But then you do get a lot of those entities, whether they're doctors or nurses or what have you, that they've continued to work there. And I think for them, it's one of those where they really wanted to help people. And so they developed a sincere attachment to this location, because that is where they spent so many hours of their life helping people. I think they just wanted to go back and continue to help. I imagine that when they passed on, the hospital was still in operation. And so they went back to the hospital while it was still in operation as a spirit to try to help out. Whether they were able to or not, I don't know, in spirit form. But now that these places are abandoned, maybe they haven't figured out where to go after that. And that's kind of the mystery there, is, now that they've been existing there for a while, do they know that they can go on somewhere else? Do they continue to want to stay there? Do they maybe even see the hospital still in operation? Maybe they haven't figured out that it's abandoned yet. So there's a lot of mysteries still to figure out within that. But, I think they had a sincere desire to help.
Do you think that it's because the veil between life and death is so thin that hospitals are capturing all that transitions? And I want to point out that question came from Gail in the Periscope chat room.
That could really be, because within hospitals, the difference between life and death, it can be less than a second. So, yeah, I would, if you want to talk in terms of how thin the veil is at a location like the hospital, that could very well be. I would agree with that.
By the way, on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, Goddess Michelle, who is a care aide at a long-term care home, she says if you ever want to investigate and get a real payout of the paranormal, go to long-term care homes. She said they're fantastic. Fantastic for ghosts and spirits, especially in Nova Scotia where she is. Are you there, Mike? Do we still got you?
I'm sorry.
Did it cut out for you?
I think it dropped for a second. Yeah.
All right. What I was saying is, Goddess Michelle at #SpacedOutRadio says you should really try investigating care homes. She says there's a really good payout on the paranormal there.
Okay, so like long-term care for the elderly?
Yes, indeed.
That sort of thing? Yeah. I imagine so. I haven't really done any long-term care homes like that, but like St. Joe's up here, of course, naturally the most deaths occurred in the geriatrics ward, which is the 4th floor. And they do get a lot of paranormal activity up there. So, yeah, I would believe that assessment is true.
When you do these hospitals, these abandoned areas, do you find that, say, the ER room gets more action than, say, the nursery, or the surgical rooms get more action than, say, the mental facilities or the mental care areas? What do you believe?
It's really a mixture, and it almost depends on the facility. So, just a couple of examples. I'll keep talking about St. Joe's up here just because it's so recent on my mind, and I was there this past weekend. So the people have captured paranormal activity in the ER area there. I really haven't experienced much in the ER there. However, the psych ward I have, the ICU I have, the labor and delivery area actually gets quite a bit. So, the operating room, I haven't gotten so much, although I've heard from other people that they do. So it's really a mix. Now, I've done some other locations like Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, and there's a third floor patients ward that is just absolutely teeming with activity. But you go to some of the other locations, like the ER and what have you, and not so much. There's an administrative section there that actually has a lot of activity, and not because of the people that actually work there, but there was a drifter that lived in there for many years, and so his spirit seems to be around in that administrative section. So that's completely separate from when it was actually operating at the hospital. Some others like Fort Chaffee again, and that was almost some of the activity that we got there were in some of the more basic medical bays, even though there was a psych ward where we didn't really get much over there. So, but at St. Joe's, I get a lot in the psych ward. So I think it just really depends on the facility and what has happened there over the years.
What about children's wards? I mean, children are such an emotional part of, I think, everybody's lives. Do you try and stay away from those areas because of the emotion that kind of goes with it? Or do you go in there to see if there's any children still looking for mom and dad that you can help?
Yeah, it's a real touchy subject, but this is where we'll do that. And this is where my partner in crime, Shauna, comes into play. She has an affinity for child spirits. They really call out to her, and she does whatever she can to help them. So that's her department.
Well, do you want to give us a little insight to what Shauna does that's so special with
Children's with
Ghosts?
I could do that.
Because, I mean, I know Shauna's listening right now. She always is when you're on the show.
Right. Yeah. She, and I guess it's got to be a gift. Because they will come to her, and she's a mother, so she'll talk to them, as a mother, and is very, very affectionate. She will, it's depending on their situation, whatever it is that she's picking up from them, she'll try to help them out with their situation and make them feel all right with who they are and whatever their situation may be.
What about crossing over? Because that is such a touchy subject when it comes to haunted and abandoned buildings. Yet for children, I think it, much like even on this side, you go out of your way to try and help kids. What's your role in crossing children over?
If we have a psychic with us that does that, then we may do something like that. Shauna and I, on our own, don't really do that sort of thing. I've helped out with cleansings, and I've been there for crossing overs and that sort of thing, but it's not really our specialty. So, if there's a situation that comes up where, we're feeling that, okay, this, this particular spirit needs that kind of help, we'll bring somebody else in who specializes in that to make sure it's done right. Shauna and I are both very knowledgeable in the paranormal and, how to investigate and how to research and all that. But, it's kind of like with anything, some people are better than others at certain things. So, and with something like that, you want to make sure it's done right, especially with children. So that's where we're bringing a specialist.
See, I think going into a hospital or a place where children have died, I may have a little bit of an issue with that in trying to deal with them. Like, if they come up to you, that's one thing. But there are investigators in those situations who go searching for kids. Do you kind of draw the line at that, Mike?
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't necessarily go in there looking for, we don't go in there specifically looking for children. They're drawn to Shauna. So what happens? She'll feel a little tug, or there's a lot of different things that'll happen. But basically, they become drawn to her. We do not go in there specifically looking for children. I mean, there's a place we're going to investigate this coming weekend. It's a historic building in Vandalia, Illinois, and there's a little boy in there that, when Shauna was first in there, she had no idea that he was there. There were a lot of different stories about that place where it had been a former bank. It had been a drugstore at one point in time. There were stories about how the rooms above had been a hotel at one point and used as a brothel at another point. So there's no stories in there about children whatsoever. But there's a little boy that came out upstairs and visited with her. So, it's not something we would have gone in there looking for. And, there's this boy. So that's the sort of thing that happens.
What about the morgues? Some say morgues are very haunted. Others say it's usually the least haunted place in the entire hospital facility. What's your take on the morgue? Because I'm pretty sure that's where everybody wants to go first.
Yeah, everybody wants to go to the morgue, and I'll say that they're not as haunted as some people try to make them out to be. There's a whole creepy factor of a morgue, especially if it still has the coolers, and then some people try to climb into the coolers and things like that. And why? I can't imagine too many spirits actually hung out within the cooler. But you do get some activity in morgues, not as much as other areas. Now, interesting story. When I was in the Air Force and I was stationed in Alaska, the building that I worked at for the last couple of years that I was there had years and years beforehand been the base hospital, and the facility, because I was basically in the basement of this building, the facility in which I worked had once been the morgue. And every once in a while, there was something creepy going on down there. So that former morgue may have been a little haunted.
Tell us some stories out of this St. Paul's, some of your favorite ghost stories out of there.
Oh, St. Joe's?
St. Joe's, sorry.
Yeah. So, well, this one just happened this past weekend. This was really interesting. So, I was helping out. It was big paranormal psychics there. This past weekend there, I had my table set up, and I spoke yesterday about shadow people. But they were looking for some help to do the ghost walks for the public. So I went ahead and volunteered to help them out with that. So things were winding down. We realized we had a good group, so we didn't have to watch them too closely. So we're kind of investigating a little bit on our own. And the one girl, Naomi, pointed out a room. It was kind of hidden behind a door that was propped open. She said, "Have you ever been in this little room back here?" It's looking odd. Didn't even realize it was there. She said, "Why don't you go in there and tell me what you feel?" I said, "Okay, sure." So I go in there, and there's strange, odd little rooms, very small and narrow. It has two separate bathrooms. So, okay, this is interesting. Well, I have two bathrooms. So I look in the one. Okay, that was a shower. Go look in the other. And, okay, that's the other amenities. But as I start to step out of it, I all of a sudden became extremely dizzy and started falling backwards. Fortunately, there's a wall behind me, and I was able to brace myself in the corner. And she looks at me and points, and she's like, "That's exactly what happened to me in that same spot." So, kind of not really sure what's going on there yet. I'm going to have to go back and investigate that one a little bit more, but kind of interesting that that I had the same reaction that she did there. And that's kind of what you do when you're working with other investigators that have, been, someplace before. That's what you do with other investigators that haven't been to someplace that you have before. You don't tell them what's going on at a certain location like that until, you kind of walk them into it and let them experience it for themselves and then see if it's the same that you had.
Are there any spirits that really have stood out to come out to you and just say, I want to take you down this journey? And the reason why I ask you that is at our local museum that we do a tour here for, we have a lot of spirits in those facilities that are so yappy the minute that we walk in there with people, they're so excited to try and communicate their stories, even if it is through yes-no questions on a K2 meter. What is your thoughts on any of those spirits coming around? Have you been able to pinpoint who they are yet or why they're communicating with you?
Well, I mean, there's some different instances that have happened over the years. Kind of one just off the top of my head. It was an old World War II plane. It was an old hangar. They used it as a training facility for the parachutes for the airborne. It was a jump school. That's the term I was looking for. And so this plane had actually seen action in World War II. Well, we're actually inside the thing. We're trying to do an EVP session and get the different devices out, and we're getting nothing for a long period of time. We're really on the verge of giving up. And so before we did, I decided to start giving a little bit of my history and saying, well, you know what? I used to be in the Air Force, and I know you were in the Army Air Corps, and the Air Force came out of the Army Air Corps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden, we started getting all kinds of, it was a K2, we started getting all kinds of hits on the K2, and, all this action started going on. Started asking these, finally got a reaction, started asking these different questions, and we discovered, okay, it was the navigator that used to fly in the plane and, all these different things. So he wanted to tell his story, but he wanted to tell his story to somebody who would understand or would understand him. And because of the fact that I had a history in the Air Force and he believed that I would, understand more about, okay, even though I never flew, they probably assumed that, I would understand a little bit more about, planes and his situation and all that, he opened up and started communicating with us a little bit.
When you have that bond with the military, do you find that a lot of spirits actually will come forward and speak to you more, Mike?
Yeah, because there's a camaraderie. There's a camaraderie with another member of the military, and it can go cross branch as well. He would have been in the Army. It was the old Army Air Corps back then. There wasn't an Air Force back in World War II. But when you start dealing with military spirits, it's even though I never saw action, there's still, I guess, that idea of you still went through the training and all that, so you know what it's like. You know what the structure is like, and so there's that camaraderie that I think that those type of spirits appreciate.
How are those type of spirits on an EVP session? Are they quite communicative? Do you get a lot of EVPs from them?
You can. I think with any spirit, they can be communicative. I think it's partly comfort level. I think if they have an understanding of how to communicate, that they will. And I've had spirits go the other way, where we're setting up for an investigation. I usually pop my audio recorder on really early when we first get to a location, even though we're just setting up, and you've got a lot of the chatter back and forth. And I've caught an EVP from a spirit saying to another, "We shouldn't talk. We shouldn't talk." And sure enough, that investigation, we really didn't get much evidence at all. But there's the one EVP at the very beginning where they're basically saying they're not going to communicate with us. They have no desire to. So kind of interesting.
I want to get to some questions from our audience here, if you don't mind, Mike. Let's start off with Eric's question here. He says, Mike, did you ever hear about the Buffalo Woman up in Alaska? Eric says he has known several that were stationed up there that told them the exact same story about her.
I don't recall the specific story about the Buffalo Woman. I can't say that.
All right, not a problem. Ron, who we call the Ukrainian watermelon around here, he's in Saskatchewan. Ron, wave to everybody. I know it's an old joke, but wave to everybody because everybody will see you. It's so flat over there. He is asking, have you ever considered working an investigation in funeral homes?
Oh, wow. Well, I have done an investigation in a former funeral home. It was also a private residence for a while, too. The one specifically brought to mind is the Stone Lion Inn in Guthrie, Oklahoma. So it was a funeral home for 8 years. And, in fact, the old embalming table is still in the house. Funny story about that embalming table is that when the current owner, Becky, bought the house, it was in the kitchen. And she didn't realize what it was. So she was, doing her baking and all that, and cooking and chopping up food and all that on it. And her son came home from school one day. He said, Mom, classmates and everything are asking where he lives, and just start telling them, some history about the house. He's like, Mom, do you know what this house used to be? And he tells her that, it's a funeral home at one point. And she looks down at the table in the kitchen. She's like, oh, my God, this is an embalming table. So she still has it there because she's turned the house into a bed and breakfast. And she does murder mystery dinner theaters out of it now. And in the entrance hall, she actually has that embalming table sitting there, and she serves drinks on it. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. There's a man there that's been seen in a top hat, and there's some debate as to whether or not it's the original owner of the home, or if it was the man that ran the funeral home. So.
I don't even know if I would be able to go into a funeral home to investigate. That just seems like taboo. It seems eerie.
Well, not a current operating one. I would probably have some issues about that, because if it's still in operation, then you're actually going to have some recently deceased bodies on the premises somewhere. So I would probably have a little bit of an issue with that. But if it's one that was a formerly operating funeral home, I'd be okay with that.
What about a current one? What if somebody said, we need you to take a look at this because we're getting some really weird activity in a current funeral home?
Yeah, I would. It would have to be situational. If they're having some problems, with activity, then I would go help them out. But like I was saying, a currently operating one where you're actually having some of the recently deceased on the premises, you're talking about bodies in which the family is going to be there very soon to pay their respects, and so that might be crossing some sort of ethical boundary there. But if they were having some major problems with paranormal activity, then I might go ahead and make that exception.
Where won't you investigate? What is off limits to you?
That's a good question.
Because everybody has their breaks, their no-go zones, Mike. Cemeteries. Do you do cemeteries?
I do cemeteries. Yeah, I do cemeteries all the time, actually. I don't have any problem with that. It would have to be something that's almost like a physical constraint. Like right now, I could not possibly go down and investigate underwater wrecks. And I have a great friend, Lee Ehrlich, who does that sort of thing. He's a world-class diver, and he does a lot of salvage work and stuff like that, but he's gone down into a lot of these old wrecks and has witnessed paranormal activity. Something I'd love to do, but I can't because I am not qualified or know how at all to use scuba equipment. So if somebody asked me, hey, you want to go do this tomorrow? I couldn't, so I'd have to refuse.
I don't know if I would do underwater. There's a lot of sharks in those areas. A lot of sharks in those areas. I don't know if I could do that. Yeah. I know with Eric...
Yeah, I suppose that does happen.
I know with Eric Markham, he's all about going out and going into North Carolina where the great whites are and going to pick up some megalodon teeth when he goes diving.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm a meal. I'm a meal, my friend. I'm not an appetizer. I'm a meal, and I'm just not going there. It's just not right. It's just not right, you know. And I just don't feel comfortable with the potential of being a meal, you know, because I would be the one, I can tell you right now, I would totally be the one that if a great white or a tiger shark or a bull shark, I'm learning all these sharks because my 4-year-old is shark crazy right now, from the bull shark up to the megalodon. And I'm telling you right now, there is no way they would look at me and say, oh, well, let's have a little taste there. There's no way they wouldn't look at me and say, we got to have a little nibble here. I just know what it would be like. It wouldn't be fun, Mike. Wouldn't be fun.
Well, I know I couldn't outrun them, that's for sure. Not that many people could, but I know enough about swimming that I won't drown, but it's not pretty.
I'm the same way. Mike Ricksecker is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He's going to come back for one more hour here on the show, talking all things paranormal. Get your questions ready as we're going to continue to talk paranormal haunts with Mike Ricksecker. His website, hauntedroadmedia.com, and MikeRicksecker.com as well. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. Hour number 3 and the Thought of the Dave coming up as well. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on spacedoutradio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you are seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at spacedoutradio.com.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Once again, we want to wish everybody in Toronto a thought and prayer from all of us at Spaced Out Radio tonight because of the ugly incident that happened, a terrorist attack in Toronto, Ontario today, where a van ran into about 16, 20 people, 30 people, whatever it was, killing 10 of them, 9 or 10 of them. Horrific sight. But the police got the culprit and hopefully, it comes out that he is prosecuted to the fullest level of murder. That is for sure. Disgusting, vile act. Again, thoughts and prayers with everybody in Toronto for tonight from all of us at Spaced Out Radio. So let's make sure we send everybody some thoughts and prayers on that one. Tomorrow night on the program, get your pen and papers ready, because Bill Hauser is going to be back with us. We are going to be having another live Ghost Box session with Bill starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and you can listen to us on The Fringe FM, 24/7 paranormal programming at thefringe.fm. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Dichloro diphentyl trichlorothane. I said it nice and slow. Dichloro diphentyl trichlorothane is your password for tonight, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can check us out live Monday through Friday on periscope.tv. Hi, everyone on Periscope as well. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store our archives. It's easy. Go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio, and you can check it out right there. Our website, once again, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You could rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, including my latest blog, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Mike Ricksecker. He is a paranormal author, investigator, scientist. The man holds many hats. He's also the owner of Haunted Road Media, and you can check out his website, MikeRicksecker.com. Check out all his books on Amazon as well. Mike, I don't know how you wear so many hats, but you do a good job with it, bud.
Well, thanks. I don't sleep much, that's how.
What's sleep when you can do it when you're dead, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sleep when I'm dead.
Exactly.
Kind of hates it when I say that.
Oh, I know. I shouldn't say that. But that's just the way it goes. I got a pair of questions from Ron Moniak here, the Ukrainian watermelon. He is asking, Mike, how do you feel about investigating murder or accident sites?
I mean, I have no qualms about it. I think by investigating some of those sites, we can learn some additional information. I guess the question would be how soon after, because there, maybe something ethical about doing it immediately after. But like my friend Vanessa Holo, she's a psychic remote viewer. I mean, she'll get impressions about locations like that, quite soon after something has happened, when she's actually helped out with some criminal cases. So, that may be a little different where she's actually able to help out. If we're, asked to help out with something like that, then we would certainly be willing to do so. But, something that's maybe more of a cold case or has long since happened, I don't have any problems with doing that. Some of these locations have had murders happen within them, and, it's not anything pretty. Like, Ohio State Reformatory, it's a prison, but murders have happened in that prison. And it's, unfortunately, it's a part of life, not a pretty part of life. But there may be somebody there who's still lingering that was murdered that has their story yet to tell, or maybe needs some help or what have you. So, we don't have any issues with investigating murder sites or, accident sites.
Ron's next question to you is, do you believe then, after all you've investigated, that there is an afterlife, and do you fear evil?
Well, I mean, evil does exist in this world. I fear more the living than I do the dead. I think people can be evil, and when evil people pass away, we kind of have this saying that if you're a jerk in life, you're going to be a jerk in the afterlife. So but it's true, because there have been locations that we visited where you have somebody who's a bit more foul in nature, and if you determine that it had been a specific person, you come to find out, well, that's the way they were in life, and that's not surprising. As far as an afterlife, yes, I do believe in an afterlife. I believe it's not entirely what we all believe it is. Well, I mean, even what we all believe it is. We all have our own different opinions, and there's so many different theories as to what goes on there. Based on religion, beliefs, what have you, everybody has their own idea. So, and this is what I say to that, is that, I believe each of the different belief systems that are in place when it comes to the afterlife, they have a piece of it correct. None of them are 100% wrong. None of them are 100% correct. And I can't tell you which is more correct than the other. I don't think they all have it right. I think they all have it wrong somewhere. And that's part of what we're trying to figure out as we investigate the paranormal. How does that afterlife work? And I've changed my mind over the years. I didn't used to believe in reincarnation, but I've seen so many different things over the years now that I've changed my mind to that, and I do believe in reincarnation now. But by believing in reincarnation, that forcibly has to cause me to question some of the other things that I've believed in and how those aspects of the afterlife work. So, it's all part of the exploration process of what we're doing here.
Getting back to the hospitals, this is a question from Gail. She is saying, is it possible that there is more activity in wards that have more emotion generated?
That's quite likely. I do believe that, a lot of what we experience is, lingering energy from, especially in a hospital, it's going to be lingering trauma energy that's there. So some of these wards that have experienced more of that will, have a certain proclivity to, having more hauntings. So, while you think that it might be the ER, there are some other places within the hospital that have had, more going on. It kind of depends on the location, what's happened there over the years. And sometimes, things move about within the hospital that you just don't realize. Like, wards can change, and you may not know that. You may only know the final configuration of the hospital, and maybe previously, the wards have been moved around. Maybe the ER was in a different place, or the psych ward was in a different place, and so it might be surprising the type of activity you pick up in different areas. Yeah, I would mostly agree with what you said.
Heather is asking, have you ever had an encounter with a spirit in full body form? If so, can you explain what happened?
As a shadow person in full body form, so like the whole classic white apparition, I have not seen that. I've seen wisps, I've seen mists, body parts, what have you. One time saw this weird white thing kind of jumping from one tree to another. But I see a lot of shadows and full body shadows. I've seen a few, but one that actually specifically came up to me and interacted with me is one of my very first paranormal experiences when I was a young child, about 8 or 9 years old, and it was there in my bedroom, and I woke up, there it was, and it actually came up to me. It crossed my arms across my body, and then it ran off down the hall. So, I was very terrified as a kid. I got up, ran to my parents' room, and they tried to tell me that it was just a nightmare, just a dream. I was like, oh, it really happened. So, and I've had that experience, not that specific with across my arms, but specifically seeing full shadow people on other occasions as well.
You consider yourself a ghostorian. How did you come up with that term?
Yeah, ghostorian. Well, I didn't like the term researcher. It's usually the term used for somebody who does the historic work, and it's like, well, research. Well, there's a lot of different things you can research within the paranormal. Yeah, it could mean history. It could mean, you could be researching technology. You could be researching, because we have an occult specialist. You could be researching the occult. There's a lot of different things you'd be researching. My big thing was history, and digging up all the things that happened at these locations over the years. Well, the one show that I was on, The Haunted, had dubbed me the team's historian, and I came out of, well, at least for a few years, out of a library background. I'd been working in the IT department for a library system, and I actually had to go get a certification as a library technician. And going through that program, and then, of course, interacting with the different librarians there, they actually get very particular about who you call a librarian. They only want people that have an MLS, a Master Library Science, to be called librarians. So they get taken off when people go up to the circulation desk and ask, like, just any old Joe, call them a librarian. So when it comes to historians, being called a historian, I didn't want to step on any toes there in the historian field, because I don't have a master's in history. My master's is, it's a bachelor's, but it's in computers. So I didn't want to step on those toes. Well, okay, if I don't want to step on those toes, I don't want to be called a researcher. I'm dealing with ghosts, and I'm dealing with histories. Well, ghost historian, ghostorian. So that's why I came up with that.
I think it's catchy. I totally think it's catchy, my friend. It suits you very, very well. And moving on to my next question for you tonight, there is so much in regards to the paranormal, Mike, and there's this giant debate going on between the skeptics and the believers, the non-believers, and those who are experiencers about what is proof. How do you define proof in the paranormal?
Yeah, that is a challenging question, because you have a sect of the paranormal that they want to approach everything scientifically, and I applaud the effort. However, to be able to conduct a real scientific investigation, you need a control object, something that you can rely on that happens exactly the same every single time in order to be able to run your tests off of that. You don't have that in the paranormal. You don't have anything that works consistent in the paranormal. You can't make an apparition appear every single time. It's not. There's no formula of, if you do this, you do this, you do this, that will happen. It doesn't happen in the paranormal. You can't make an EVP happen. You can't make the meter light up every time the same way. It just doesn't happen. And so that's one of the challenges that we have in presenting proof, is that nothing is consistent. So it makes it a challenge, and we call what we collect evidence. And really what it comes down to at this point in time, until we can figure out a way to make something happen consistently like that, it comes down to trust. And that was the problem we were talking about earlier, where if you have a couple of people within the field that fake something, then you lose that trust from the entire field. So it makes it very, very difficult to present what we do believe is proof. Here's this EVP. Here's this image. These are the things that we've captured of paranormal activity. You just need to believe us that it is. It's difficult task.
Do you think the evidence is out there that the skeptics should be taking a little bit more seriously as true proof that we have some sort of phenomenon going on in the paranormal?
Well, it depends on which skeptics you're talking about, because there are skeptics that have an open mind, and then there are skeptics that are going to be skeptical no matter what in the world you present. And you're going to have that in anything where you have the two polar opposites, that, people who are going to believe everything and people who are going to believe nothing. And those two people, you're not going to change their minds. It's the ones in the middle, the ones that maintain that open mind. And those are the ones that you reach out to and talk to. You're going to hear a bunch of garbage from the one that's never going to believe anything. And there's nothing you can do to make them change their mind. That's with any belief. And there's still people that believe the earth is flat. You're not going to change their mind, but they believe it.
Very true. Very true. But do you have information that you could present to your, let's say, a skeptical five senses type of person comes up to you and says, I don't believe in this. And you go through, because you're a man of science, you can go through your evidence and say, well, explain this to me. Do you have those pieces of evidence, or are you still looking for them yourself as well?
Oh, I have some different things that I could show somebody. I have, some different photographs, some different video clips, some different experiences that I could go ahead and present. Here's this illuminated ball of light. Here's this white wisp. Here's, these, voices that are talking that's nobody in the room. Here's, there's so many different things, so you try to explain these, we captured a shadow person, on video. There was nobody there with us, but here it is. You can see it walking, explain it. So, yeah, there's different things I could throw at them and see what they come back with for a response. And, and hope they believe you. With those people, if they have an open mind, you can have some constructive back and forth. And they may not believe everything that you say. They may not believe everything that you show them. But it may get them to think a little bit more about it the next time they see something.
What's the best piece of evidence you are holding on to today that for you is conclusive proof?
Oh, that's a good question. So, there's this EVP, and I play it a lot, so I don't hold on to stuff and not play it. We were at a cemetery, and this was out in the middle of nowhere. But I'm describing the setup. I've kind of taken notice of this one plot where there's a family headstone, and there's a military headstone behind it. And I'm like, oh, this guy has two headstones. And I'm telling one of the other members of the team, what the layout is. And there's this fantastic, very clear, very precise EVP. It wasn't a voice of anybody that was with us. It says, correct. It sounds very simplistic. It's not, a photo of a full body apparition. Like I said, I have a photo. Well, actually, it's a video clip, but I've taken a still of it of a shadow person to see the thing walking. But I've always liked that one of just this confirmation that here I am describing this guy's plot, and I don't know if it was him or maybe it was one of the neighbors, that are there that affirmed exactly what I was describing. I've always liked that one.
We have a cemetery up here. I'm going to try and get to it this summer because there is a weird story there of a young man, I believe he was 28 years old, when he passed away playing professional baseball in Mexico. and he was at the plate, and he either took a fastball to the head on a wild pitch, or when he was swinging the bat came all the way back and cracked him in the head. Something along those lines, or a foul ball. And apparently this guy is meandering around the cemetery. And I want to go try and talk to him this summer. I totally want to talk to him. See how it goes. Gotta wait till it's warm though, and there's no bears around.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with those bears.
No. We're going out to tomorrow morning. We're actually going out to our Sasquatch gifting site tomorrow morning to check it out for the first time. See if we can get in there without the snow being all over the place. And we haven't been in there literally since early December, so we have to go in armed because there's a lot of big bears around there. A lot of big bears, and they're waking up and they're hungry. So we got to be careful with that. In regards to proof, though, do you think that there is enough proof out there in eyewitness testimony and video footage and current data that people have got on their ghost hunting gear to prove that there is some sort of existence of life after death?
I would like to think that there's enough out there. I mean, I've seen so much over the years, from other people. It's just the stuff I've collected. There's so much out there of whether it's people's experiences or whether it's some sort of video that they have, a photograph, EVPs, what have you. There's so much out there that I think it's enough to say that there is something else. Even for, if you don't want to believe that one specific incident, with all the, plethora of material that's out there. I mean, like I said, you're always going to have your people that are diehard, on one end of the spectrum that are never going to believe. But I would like to think that there's enough out there at this point that those that are on the fence would have to sway more toward the side of, there's something else going on here.
I think there is enough proof out there. It's whether or not society can accept it. Because that is a big issue that we have with the evidence out there. I mean, let's face it. People have been convicted of crimes with less evidence than what we have in the paranormal. It's just people, I think, on the mainstream side of things, or the skeptical side of things, Mike, just don't want to accept that this is some sort of proof.
Well, I think in some circles that it'll start calling into question people's religious beliefs. If this paranormal stuff exists, what does it say about the way we've always believed in the afterlife pertaining to our religion, whatever your religion may be? What a lot of the paranormal experiences that we've had, paranormal evidence that we've collected, some of that flies in the face of the different world religions and their beliefs of the afterlife. So how do you reconcile that? And I don't think people want to answer those questions.
Do you think it's fear-based?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely fear-based. If that changes how we view the afterlife, then what in the world happens to me when I die? Oh my God, I don't want to not know what's going to happen to me when I die. Of course, it's fear-based. If it starts, people are already, fearful of, if you believe in hell, people are already fearful enough of hell. If you call into question, the entire scheme of the afterlife after we've believed in heaven, hell, that sort of thing for so many years, and oh my God, now I don't know where I'm going to go. It's definitely a fear-based thing.
Mike, there are very few people in this field who are trying to connect the big three. The spiritual realm, ghosts, paranormal, whatever you want to call it, the extraterrestrial realm, and the cryptid realm as well. A lot of people do believe that there is some sort of tie in between the three, but cannot put their finger on it. Now, I know you're a guy who investigates everything, primarily ghosts and spirits is your forte, but do you think that we have segregated this for too long and maybe need to start combining evidence from other groups to see if there is any sort of correlation between all of the subjects involved?
Well, and there may very well likely be. You know, if you dive into the world of interdimensions and take a look at what may exist outside of the current dimension that we live in, and how if there are beings out there that are living in a dimension higher than ours, then that leaves a lot of these things open to possibilities being all connected in some way, shape, or form. Like I believe shadow people are interdimensional beings. How they're able to travel between those dimensions, I'm not sure, but I don't believe that they're really of our dimension. Just from some of the odd behavior that I've witnessed with them. So I know people have theories out there about maybe Bigfoot's an alien, or maybe it's an interdimensional being. Maybe aliens travel to and from here interdimensionally. There's a lot of theories on that, and if they are all connected, that may be where it lies in other dimensions.
Do you find that there are similarities, say, between a cryptid investigation comparatively to the paranormal? Because there are a lot of people, Mike, including myself, who have one sighting and then all of a sudden it leads to the entire trifecta.
Yeah, it certainly can. I don't want to say this. Sorry, it's getting a little late here in the East. How do I want to put that? It's interesting how you can have one experience that becomes an eye-opener, that becomes relatable to a number of other things within a number of other fields, or maybe other things that you've experienced. A lot of times it just takes that one moment. So, and keep your eyes open, keep an open mind is usually what I tell people. Keep an open mind to all these other things. Like, you may just believe in, spirits and ghosts, but as far as the other stuff, it may be out there too. So keep your mind open to it.
What's your stance on it personally, though?
Do I believe in those things? Do I believe in
not so much not so much belief in it, Mike, but
I don't know that one.
In trying to bring was that Siri or Shanna?
That was Alexa.
Oh, Alexa.
Stop.
So Alexa is trying to answer this too.
Yeah.
Wow. We stumped Alexa there. No, but the point that I was trying to get at, what is your personal belief, Mike, in regards to the fact that there could be a tie-in between the three that we don't know about on a spiritual level?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could very well exist, and if it does, I think it's within these different dimensions. People. You have a lot of people looking for UFOs. Maybe it's not necessarily a UFO, a craft like that. It could be a craft. Maybe it's a time machine. Maybe it's some craft that they have to use to travel between dimensions. Maybe they're not necessarily coming out of space. Maybe these things are traveling within our world, interdimensionally. Same thing with with spirits, with human spirits. How it could just very well be a plane of existence that, because we're trapped down here in this three-dimensional world that we can't wrap our heads around. And maybe they're above all that. If you go through the different dimensions, we see the three-dimensional world. Our dimension right now is time, and then there's a fifth dimension, if it exists, would see time as almost like a three-dimensional world of time itself. So if they're above all of that, that gives them a lot of play to move in and out of different aspects of our world. And it's very difficult for our minds because of how used we are to this world to be able to imagine all of that.
Gail is asking, and this will be our final question from the audience tonight. She says, David, Mike, as a Christian, could you please explain to me why a ghost is here rather than in heaven?
There it is. Okay.
We have a bingo, Mike. We have a bingo.
Yeah. Because, you get into a lot of different theology, so, and that's a difficult question to ask when you're coming at it from an aspect of religion. And if you believe in a heaven or hell, if you believe in reincarnation, you're not necessarily believing in a heaven or hell, which is something I had to, really contend with. I think, I'll give an example of my grandfather. He passed away before my grandmother. That's on my dad's side. And there are many of us within the family that believe that we had experienced him in some way, shape, or form while my grandmother was still alive. And the people visibly saw my grandmother talking to him. They didn't see him, but they saw her talking as if she was talking to him. So some would say, well, she was getting dementia or whatever, but there's so many other cases in which you knew he was around. You could either sense him, feel him, smell him. There's different things that would happen that was just so grandpa, After she passed away, none of that happened anymore. That all went by the wayside. So, if there is a heaven and that's where people go, why did my grandfather not go to heaven immediately after dying? Well, I think he was waiting around for my grandmother. And then once she passed away, they moved on together. So I think there's different reasons why spirits linger here. That was one for my grandfather. There may be some unfinished business. There may be, some message that they want to give. A lot of different reasons. I've heard of spirits that, because they do believe heaven, hell, that sort of thing, they don't want to chance moving on anywhere because they think they're going to go to hell. So they'd rather stick around here, walking around, rather than take a chance of going to hell. So there's a number of different reasons.
And that's a debate that we could literally go an entire show on, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
I think there is something to it, and this is just my own belief. It's not a theory or anything along those lines, but I'm curious to get your thoughts about it. To me, it's almost like there is this floor that's like 1 foot to 3 feet off the ground that is like a place for the spirits to walk, where they're able to roam free and do whatever they want to do at whatever time or however long they want. I think there's a lot more freedom on the other side, whether it's heaven or whether it's having any sort of contact back on Earth. If you loved this place, why couldn't you come back? Why do you have to be stuck in heaven, in God's realm? And I am a believer in God, but I can't see God saying, no, you got to stay here. Can't go back down there. Can't do that. I can't see that happening. You know, I mean, heaven, when the spirit is free, is supposed to be free, is it not?
Right. And there are a lot of people that believe that, when a spirit crosses over, that they're not necessarily stuck to wherever they cross over to, if that's heaven or someplace else, that they do have the option of coming back. And you hear stories about, grandma or Aunt Jane or whomever has been long since gone from the earth, 10, 20 years, whatever it is. And nobody is, ever made mention of having a paranormal experience of any sort, of them. But then all of a sudden there's this moment where maybe there's a traumatic event or whatever it is that, grandma comes back down and, shares something or consoles somebody or whatever it is. So is that moment where they were up in heaven and they came back down? It could be.
It's the debate that will keep on debating.
Oh, absolutely.
And one day, I guess we're all lucky, if you believe in the afterlife, we'll all get the answer to it. How far you want to go with it, it's all up to you. It is all up to you with no matter how far you want to go with it. Mike, we do have about 5 minutes here before we're going to get to the thought of the day. And I want to get to your Paracon because you are actually, like me, doing your first annual Paracon this year. We are combining ours with the Canadian Society of Questers up here and Spaced Out Radio September 28th to 30th. Tell us about yours. Why did you decide to get a Paracon going out east?
We're doing a Paracon at the Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois. It's our first one, June 9th. So that's, and it's running from 10 till 6. And, it really is by request. We had a demand for it, and I knew it would be a lot of work, and I do so many other things, but there was just a demand for it. With Haunted Road Media, we have a number of authors, so, we're a publishing company, and between those authors that, we're looking for a Haunted Road Media venue to do something, and our fan base that we have that watches Haunted Road Media YouTube channel and everything that we do there, with Edge of the Rabbit Hole and Inside the Upside Down and all of our shows and everything, there is this demand between the two parties to have a place to get together, have the authors share their books, have some different paranormal personalities come in and do some speeches, and we have some of our authors that are giving presentations. There's just demand for it, so it's okay, fine. We'll set it up and we'll see how it goes. So, and we have a lot of great speakers lined up, a lot of great vendors that are coming in. We have some live music. It's going to be a great time. So it's something that we're really looking forward to, and I think it's going to be quite successful.
Who do you have come to speak?
Well, my co-host Vanessa Hogel's coming out. We have, I mentioned him earlier, Lee Ehrlich, the guy who does all the deep sea diving. So he'll be talking about his experiences underwater. Rob Guttrow is coming out to talk about pets in the afterlife.
We just had him on the show on Friday. He's awesome.
Did you? Yeah, Rob. He's a great friend of mine. He's fantastic.
Fantastic guy.
Yeah. So we have quite a few different people coming out.
I believe you also had another one of our former guests recently, Michelle Hamilton.
Yeah, Michelle Hamilton is going to be out. She's actually not lined up to speak, but we have a special table set up for her. We were booked up. Our speaker spots went so quick. So, but she is going to be out. And, and Chuck Banks is speaking as well. Let's go have Chris Sutton. Chris Sutton is going to be talking about, being a spiritual warrior. He's a shaman. So, a lot of great people.
Is it just a one-day event, or is it two?
Yeah, it's just the one day, Saturday, June 9th. And I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a great time.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Any Spaced Out Radio discounts, if they come in and say, hey, Mike, I heard you on Spaced Out Radio, you got $1 off or $2 off the ticket for them? I'm going to put you on the spot right here for our listeners.
The ticket to get in is $5. I don't know how much lower I could make it.
Oh, okay. Well, then they have to pay it. They have to pay it. $5, everybody can afford $5.
Well, I'll tell you what. If they want to do a paranormal investigation for your Spaced Out listeners, if they want to do the paranormal investigation, which we're doing that night, the Mineral Springs Hotel, we'll give them $5 off. So ticket for that is $35. We'll give it to them for $30.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. I'm always fighting for our listeners because we care about them around here. So head out and take advantage of that, Spaced Out Radio listeners. Go to this conference. Let Mike know you heard him on Spaced Out Radio. You're going to get $5 off. We just pulled this off tonight. You're going to get $5 off your paranormal tour. Go for it. Go for it. I know a lot of these speakers personally. You're going to get great information. And I suggest going into our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And we are going to be part of that because these people have been a part of us. Go listen to their interviews. It's going to be great. Mike, we're going to play the Thought of the Day here. I'm going to throw some music on. Then we're going to get to the question I asked our audience. Hold on. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where during the day we ask a question on Facebook, shuffles over to Twitter, and we ask you what your thoughts are in the Thought of the Day. Today, describe your closest encounter you've ever had with a ghost. We asked for strong details, please. So, Mike, I'm going to get you to sit in with me here, and you can enjoy some of these stories from our audience members. We're going to start off with PJ on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. A cabin my husband rented up in the hills of Idaho during his temporary job. I ended up having to go out there too. We left in under a week due to the intensely bad vibrations and bad dreams I had. My hubby knew I was psychic and we left ASAP. I believe a cult had been there before that. Have you ever been or investigated a building that a cult was formerly at?
Well, we believe that there was. That was Black Bear Church out in Olive Township, Oklahoma. It's really out in the middle of nowhere. It's off a dirt road. And there were indications there that there had been occult practices that had been performed there. There's an old abandoned church, desecrated, and there's an old stone in the back that we found evidence of scorch marks, burn marks, burnt animal bones, that sort of thing. And the one entity there was a crawler. And so the belief is, and it's hard to prove it, this is what happened, but the belief is that somebody was back there trying to conjure something up. Maybe they didn't even know what they were doing, but that somebody had, conjured up this crawler. So that would, that's definitely the occult area that I've investigated.
Catherine comes out on Twitter, #SpacedOutRadio, and says, I was 25-ish, living in a friend's basement. As I would prepare to go to bed, I would hear someone walk from the living room to my bedroom door, rustling newspaper pages, stand in the doorway for a few minutes, reading, then turn the page. I could hear it all, and then they would walk off. After a few months, it just stopped. You always have to wonder about these spirits that maybe are just walkthroughs like that, don't you?
Yeah, there are things called transient spirits that are in and out. I had one when I first moved into a house in Ohio when I was a kid that it was peeking its head around the door and saw it from time to time and dart away and that sort of thing, and there for maybe like 2 months and then gone. So that does happen.
You dealt with a lot of transients?
Well, a few.
We dealt with one up here at our local museum where I do our paranormal tour. And we were able to figure out that it was an American man who had taken a paddle wheeler up from Washington State. He crossed the border, went into Canada, grabbed a paddle wheeler, went up to a small town called Yale on the Fraser River before buying a horse and a trailer and making his way up the Gold Rush Trail. And when we asked him, apparently when we caught him, he was on his way back down to the United States again. And when we asked him point blank, could you tell us where you put your gold? Our K2s, we had 4 K2s in there that were all spiking at red. This guy was in a big circle. So if you take like an 8-10 foot round circle, he was in the middle and spiking 4 meters at pure red on the light meters. And all of a sudden, simultaneously, every K2 meter stopped and went to green. Wouldn't tell us where his gold was.
Oh, wow.
It was one of the most hilariously funny things I've ever seen happen in the paranormal. Like, this guy was so chatty, and then all of a sudden, where's your gold hidden? Bang, gone. He just took off.
It.
Yeah, that was it. We were done. We were absolutely done. All right, let's get to another one here. Chris in Washington State, she is saying, when my grandmother passed away, her microwave went to my mom. My husband and I had visited my mom and spent the night. At 3 a.m., this microwave would start beeping in a rhythmic pattern, all by itself. We could go see what was up, and the screen it spelled out, child. My grandmother would do this when we were standing right next to it. Kind of scary, but on the other hand, kind of cool, because it was her communicating. We figured out the reason. It was my mom and her brother never got along, and when Grandma passed, we were sure she was still upset her kids never did make amends. What do you think of a story like that, Mike?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's, again, another way in which you have a family member trying to come back and deliver a message. So there's a purpose for that person coming back and being amongst us. Like I said, I think I had the same thing happen with my grandfather. He delivered a message to me. Yeah, it's one of the purposes for spirits coming back.
This one's a little bit of a long one. I will try and paraphrase it here a little bit. John says, I've had several encounters with shadow people. The most striking encounter I ever had was with one when I was caretaking for my elderly grandmother. It was late one night around 2 a.m. when it was pouring rain outside. I was asleep and I woke up all of a sudden after a loud thunderclap. The guest bedroom I was sleeping in was dark. However, the adjacent room had a light on, and you could naturally see the light creeping in and around the cracks of the door. So I got up out of bed and I happened to look down below the door where the light was creeping underneath, where I saw 2 shadowy feet standing at the bedroom door like someone was just there. So I opened the door, nobody there. This freaked me out, so I ended up doing my business in the bathroom and went back to bed and closed the door. I looked down again and I saw the same 2 shadowy feet standing there. This made my blood run cold. Keep in mind, I couldn't make out any detail of these feet besides extreme black like a shadow. I opened the door again. Nope, nobody standing there. And it just continued on. You've dealt with a lot of shadow people. What brings them on?
I believe they are interdimensional beings. What brings them on is a very good question. Like the first experience that I had with one, I woke up in the middle of the night in my corner. I had no idea why it was there or why it did the thing that it did. Some of them, the one that was peeking in my bedroom door, was it just checking us out and make sure we were okay and what about its business? Was it still there and we just never saw it again? It's a very good question. So it's one of those, shadow people are very mysterious, and why they do the things that they do, we're not really sure. And it's kind of difficult because a lot of people want answers to shadow people, and we're doing a lot to try to make sense of it all. as to who are what they are and why did. And some people think that they're all bad. They're not all bad. So I wish I had a better answer for that. It's one of those that, again, we're not sure exactly who or what they are, so we don't have those sorts of answers.
Let's move on to another one here. Matthew in Toronto. I was in a room alone in Hatley Castle at Royal Roads University while I was studying there. I was surrounded by a strong scent of cigar, despite no one else being in the room and no windows being open. Within a few seconds, that smell went away. Now, that doesn't surprise me. Vancouver Island in British Columbia, where Royal Roads University is, it's a former military university. It went and switched over to a public university probably about 15, 20 years ago now. But being a former military school, number one, but number two, with being Vancouver Island, Mike, if you ever get a chance to come up to British Columbia and investigate Vancouver Island, I highly suggest you do this. Highly suggest. The island is freaky.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to go out to Vancouver.
Doors open. You can come here and check out the ghosts up in the Gold Rush Trail here as well. Adam jumps in and says, I was outside waxing my truck on this beautiful sunny day. I live on a fairly busy street. Cars would pass by and I could see them going to the end of the street. There was a calm. No cars on the road for about 10 minutes. I heard a car coming and saw it out of the corner of my eye, a white sedan. It got to the front of my truck and poof, it was gone. Have you ever dealt with any ghost cars? And I don't mean the police type.
Oh, that's interesting. I've heard a lot, over the past few days, I've heard a lot of tales about either phantom cars or phantom people walking along the road. Personally, I have not dealt a lot with ghost cars. Normally it's what I've dealt with are the phantoms along the road or the ones that jump in your car. I've had that happen too. So that's a little bit different, but still it's that whole roadside. There's so much that happens up and down the road. There are a lot of accidents, that happen. And so, and again, you have like kind of these transients going back and forth too, of, people that, use that road for, a lot of different reasons. So there's actually a lot of energy out there on the roads. And yeah, the phantom car stories to me are always really interesting, although I haven't personally experienced one. If I have, I didn't know it was a phantom car.
I've seen one phantom car, and this was at night. I was driving home from work on Highway 1 westbound, and we have to cross this bridge, this about 100-yard bridge, and I saw this car ahead of me. It had no lights on, and I literally started flashing it, to turn its lights on, and this car was probably 150 feet ahead of me. And then all of a sudden, as we came to the bridge, this car just gassed it, and it went over the bridge. And as I peeked onto the bridge, there's this large left-hand turn, this curve in the highway. And when I looked, that car was gone. There was nothing there. And there is no way that I could not have seen it. Freaked the living daylights out of me. I can remember the shape of the car. It was a Chevrolet. I know that it was like the 1970 early 70s Caprices that the police used to use, except it was more round in the front and in the back. It was really, I don't know the brand of it. I'm saying the police car, the Caprice, back in the 70s, early 80s, but I know it was an earlier version of that. Freaked me right out. Absolutely freaked me right out. Mike Ricksecker, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight, my friend. Let us know where we can find your books, your websites.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on, Dave. I greatly appreciate it. So you can find me at MikeRicksecker.com or HauntedRoadMedia.com. Also, please check out our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/HauntedRoadMedia. And of course, we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all of those great locations as well. And come on out to the Paracon in Alton, Illinois in June. We would love to have you June 9th.
And don't forget, Space Travelers, take advantage of that $5 discount on the ghost hunt if you're going down there. Take advantage of it. We're working for you here. Go find this great event. Mike Ricksecker's one of the real ones out there. You want to do it. Mike, I'm going to put you on hold. If you can just wait for a couple of seconds. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out after every single show. Tomorrow night, Bill Hauser, live Ghost Box Sessions. It's going to be a great show. Get your pen and paper ready because we want you to participate in it as well. I want to say a big thank you to everybody rocking at home, in your cars, at work, in your home, wherever you may be. Maybe in front of a nice campfire getting spooked out by the paranormal stories of Mike. Thank you so much for sharing our show. I want to say a big thank you to everyone at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, on Periscope, in the Spreaker chat room, and, of course, on Facebook, the Veterans, the SOR Space Travelers Club. You guys were awesome. Keep on rocking it because together, my friends, we own the night. I'll talk to you in 21 hours from now. Good night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. See you tomorrow, everyone. Good night.
1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching.